Reprise de débat. The honourable member from Essex.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise today to speak in support of Bill C-4, an act to amend the Canada Labour Code, the Parliamentary Employment and Staff Relations Act, and the Public Service Labour Relations Act and the Income Tax Act. This bill represents an important effort to reverse the anti-union and anti-worker legislation that was ushered through Parliament by the previous Conservative government. The NDP worked tirelessly to oppose Bills C-377 and C-525 at every step of the way. So it should come as no surprise that our party is in full support of repealing these bills. While I welcome the changes tabled by the government as a good first step, there is so much more to do for workers' rights and conditions. New Democrats are calling on the government to reinstate a federal minimum wage, adopt anti-scab legislation, and implement proactive pay equity legislation as per the NDP motion passed in this place just a few days ago.
Hear, hear.
The NDP is also calling on the government to restore good faith bargaining with our public service workers by repealing Chapter 20 of C-59 on sick days. After a decade of Conservative darkness, I'm encouraged to see the Liberal government take the first steps to restore some of the rights of working people that were under attack under the previous government. As the Member of Parliament for Essex, I'm determined to be a strong voice for working people both in my home riding and across Canada. The struggle of working people in Canada in unionization and their gains have benefited all Canadians. The fight of unions for a fair workplace for all workers in our country began with the fight in 1872 to have a shorter workday, but have included changes to maternity, parental leave, the right to a safe workplace, and more. My riding has proud union members working in auto manufacturing, healthcare, long-term care, education, municipal workers, tradespersons, retail, and public sector. The benefits of being a unionized worker include a legally binding contract that guarantees working conditions, job security, paid holidays, wages, benefits, health and safety, and more. On average, unionized workers earn $5 more per hour than non-unionized workers. For women, the difference is $6.65 an hour. Higher wages negotiated by unions inject an additional $786 million into the Canadian economy each week. Unions also provide great support for communities. In my riding of Essex, unionized workers give generously and selflessly to the United Way and other nonprofit organizations, which has made a vast difference in the lives in all of our communities and not just the lives of union members. Gaps that exist due to government cuts and programs and reductions are picked up by caring union members who continue to dig deep into their pockets even when they are suffering in their own industries. Mr. Speaker, I spent much of the last year, or Madam Speaker, pardon me, I spent much of the last year knocking on doors and talking with people from every community in my riding of Essex. Their stories and struggles were the struggles of all hard-working Canadians. High unemployment through no fault of their own, one of the highest unemployment rates in Canada in our region, and many still ineligible for EI. Workers are struggling to make ends meet. Our communities are filled with the working poor, who are left no choice but to work in minimum wage jobs and part-time or casual jobs, often piecing together 2 or 3 different jobs just to make ends meet. Sadly, this is a growing reality across Canada. Statistics tell us that 60% of all new Canadian jobs are considered precarious, part-time, temporary, contract-based, freelance, and self-employed positions. These workers are taxi drivers, contract teachers, office cleaners, and clerks. They often have no workplace pension, no job benefits, and no job security. As parliamentarians, I believe it's our responsibility to work together and advocate for solutions that will improve the lives of all Canadians. Instead, in the previous Parliament, the Conservatives pushed through legislation, Bill C-377 and Bill C-525, designed to weaken unions and make it more difficult for Canadians in federally regulated workplaces to join a union. These 2 bills moved through Parliament as private members' bills, although it was crystal clear that these were government-led initiatives. Even now, Conservatives are threatening to use their power in the Senate to block legislation that will restore labour rights. Canadians are fed up with the unelected, unaccountable, under-investigation Senate. There is no place in our democracy for these senators to upend the work done by Canadians' representatives here in this place.
Hear, hear.
Bill C-377 was an unnecessary, discriminatory law designed to impose onerous and absurdly detailed reporting requirements on unions. Guised as a move to improve transparency, those who actually know how union locals operate also know that Bill C-377 had absolutely nothing to do with transparency. As a union member, I know the direction of the union members' funds, how they are determined, in fact, by the membership. Transparency between union members and their elected governing executives is never an issue. Members are always able to access the financial disclosure of their allocation of dues. Not a penny is spent that is not reported to the membership. Reporting requirements in Bill C-377 would have bogged unions down in so much red tape that it would severely interfere with their ability to serve their membership. According to the Privacy Commissioner of Canada, this bill went against the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms by violating Canadians' rights to the freedom of association and privacy rights of those who work for a union. Bill 377 would also have cost millions of dollars to implement. The Parliamentary Budget Officer estimated it would cost more than $2.4 million allocated by the Canadian Revenue Agency. In fact, it was estimated that it would have cost the CRA approximately $21 million to establish the electronic database over the first 2 years and approximately $2.1 million per year in each subsequent year. Repealing the contents of Bill C-377 will save millions of dollars for both the government and the unions. As I previously mentioned, and continue that critical support that unionized workers provide for their communities where government gaps exist. Bill C-4, the government bill before us today, also seeks to repeal Bill C-525, another bill introduced by a conservative backbencher and ushered through by a conservative government intent on attacking the labour movement. Bill C-525 fundamentally changed the process for certifying or decertifying a union under federal jurisdiction, essentially making it harder to certify a union and easier to decertify. It should come as no surprise that workers would want to unionize. As I outlined earlier, unionized jobs tend to have higher wages, better benefits, and better working conditions than non-unionized jobs. C-525 would impact all federally regulated workers seeking to certify or decertify as a union. Workers under this jurisdiction include the energy sector, airline sector, telecommunications, rail, and postal workers. For these federally regulated workers to certify as a unionized workforce, it previously was the case that a union was automatically certified if more than 50% of employees sign a card indicating they wish to be a member of a union, called a card check system. If between 35 and 50% of employees sign a card, a vote is triggered to ask employees if they wish to be unionized. C-525 changed all this by outlawing the card check model and replacing it with a two-step process. First, the card signing process, where the percentage of signed cards required to trigger a vote increased from 35 to 40%. The second step included a government-supervised vote. These changes were fundamentally unfair and put workers wanting to unionize at a serious disadvantage. Madam Speaker, Bills C-377 and C-525 were not in the best interests of workers. Instead, they were designed to further attack and erode the labour movement in Canada. New Democrats will always stand for the interests of working Canadians, and I'm proud of how our party provided strong and effective leadership in opposing these bills in the House, at committee, and in the media. Today's legislation repealing Bills 377 and 525 is a step in the right direction. I'm also proud of our successful NDP motion this week calling for immediate action on pay equity. Let's also move forward on restoring and enhancing collective bargaining rights, as well as fairer working conditions for all Canadians.
Questions and comments?